and out in the community as the efforts to build the world that should be, one with kindness and love and humor and compassion at its core. My name is Steve Wilson. Your leader, I guess, today, and I'd like to encourage people to either turn off or turn up your phones, depending on your level of willfulness to be disruptive. We got a few announcements here. There's line dancing on Friday, September 26th. That's also a day where we're going to take a trip from 11 to 3 to the Lowell Mills. If anybody wants to join us for a trip to see the museums of the sort of Industrial Revolution and the linens and, you know, all that kind of stuff, that's going to leave from church at 11. We got Solar Jazz Fest coming up. That's coming up in 2 weekends, so that's on Sunday after church, so mentally prepare to stay or come back. We also have our open mic night coming up on October 3rd. There is a new member discussion group after church, after coffee hour, starts about noon today. So if you're interested in becoming a member, or you're a longtime member and you're interested in just having a conversation about Unitarian Universalism. We also have one of our classic penultimate potlucks coming up this Friday. So there's a lot going on. I'm going to just quickly allow people to make any announcements. Anybody want to raise their hand, and I'll encourage us to be brief. We'll go Celia first, then Lisa.
Hi, I'm Celia. Oh, it's so much fun to see all this red here. So cheerful. Please, yes, all right. Greeters, please. I need volunteers, people that will help us greet people as they come in the door, see me after church. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I just wanted to let you folks know that First Parish has a poetry group called Living by Heart, and we've been meeting via Zoom primarily since the unfortunate COVID incident. And we decided we like each other so much we'd like to see a little more of each other in person. So we're now going to start meeting in person on alternate months, and we're booked out through 2026. We're only looking for hosts for April and June. So if you're interested in poetry, please join us. It's a good group.
First Tuesday of the month. What time? Burying the lead over here, Lisa Whitmore. We also could use people to come sign up and do coffee hour too. So we're going to pass that on to me and take it away.
We light the chalice this morning for Earth, our home. Earth abundant, source of what was before we were and will be after we are gone. As each cell proves our common destiny, blessed is our bondedness to Earth. Blessed is our bondedness to all of life. Blessed is our bondedness to the source of life itself.
Thank you, Chris. Frida Kahlo says that nothing is worth more than laughter. It's strength to laugh and to abandon oneself to be light. Someone had suggested at one of our calendar gatherings where I put up all those silly tables that we should do something on laughter, so I picked humor. In the ancient Hindu scripture, it says that there are three things that are real: God, human folly, and laughter. One of the creation myths of the Aborigines in South Africa says humans were created from dung, molded into human form and tickled, thus caused to come to life. And according to the Polynesian creation legend, the first couple looked at each other with their naked bodies and laughed. In ancient Egypt, the creator confronted chaos, and as he laughed it off, he delivered a world full of joy and exuberance. When God burst out laughing, it is said, there was light. The Apache myth, the creator made humankind able to do almost everything, but the creator was not satisfied, though, till humankind was able to laugh, and so people laughed and laughed and laughed, and the creator said, now you are fit to live. So, it feels pointless to say that humor is valuable. We know it instinctively. To say humor is valuable is the equivalent of saying that food tastes good or beauty is appealing. One of the ways I thought about when I was prompted by the laughter idea is to do a sermon on humor, and I thought, okay, how do I do humor and try to be funny, but also try to get behind it with a little bit more depth? So doing that, two categories or questions came up for me. One was, how does humor work? What's it built off of? And what makes something funny, right? So that's sort of one. And then the other is, what does humor do for us? What's the evolutionary advantage of humor? Why humor in the world? Why does it even exist? So today our sermon works from the supportive actor sort of stage to the examination room. But as we all come to know, the punishment of my sermons is still quite a ways away. So I encourage you to stand in spirit, if not in body, or both, and come sing our opening hymn, number 128, For All That Is Our Life. 128.
Our life, we sing our thanks and praise.
find a still space to just be. Think about how on these grounds that we have, people have been praying for close to 300 years. I think that's so cool. Here's my prayer. Because of the loyalty of our members, we're still here and strong. For the challenge and intelligence brought by Jean Cahill, the steadfastness of Renee Peace and Karen Nelson, the good humor of Chris Woodcock, the competence and caring of Celia Brown, we give thanks and are grateful. For the broad spiritual wisdom of Audrey and Sal, the pragmatism and diligence of Dean, for the resilience and intelligence of Heather and Rich, for the passion and enthusiasm of Kathleen, gratitude, for the fidelity, loyalty, and common sense of Gordon Hart and Dick Z, for the quiet mix of strength and vulnerability that Joe and Joanna come with, for those new friends like Jane Gassick, for the mix of UU history and fresh ideas of Nick and Oliver, for the balance of raw skill and earnestness that Stephanie brings to us all the time, for the foolish, ridiculous attention to the grounds that Donna and Dave and others bring, and for those that go unmentioned in this prayer but fill out this generation of our church's legacy, thanks. You are known and seen and loved as part of this high-minded church. And we take just a moment of silence before joys and concerns. Think on all those gifts. It's now time for joys and concerns, and I encourage people to come forward who we line up over here and come share what's on your heart and mind. Tell us about your week. All of that.
Hi, I'm Kathleen. Last night I was with my teacher, the woman who taught me about music therapy and allowed me to flourish in this beautiful profession. And she's 76 and she lives alone. And for all the time I've known her since 1980, her license plate says, "I laugh." She has this funny accent, this put-on Kennedy-esque thing, so it was always "I laugh." And I was with her last night. She showed up at my wedding with the Marco, the glasses, the Marx Brothers stuff. I mean, this is how we've always been. And when her husband died by suicide, because she practiced it every day in every way she could, she found a way to practice it at that time to keep herself afloat. I know that also reflects the same in the research with forgiveness, that when you practice it in every small way, you can practice it in big ways. I'm grateful for that. And then my last gratitude is for these amazing flowers, the gift of Lise and Linda. Fantastic.
I have two stones of gratitude. Our third great-grandchild just celebrated his first birthday. And in Utah, our fourth great-grandchild was just born. So happy birthday to Rocco, and we can hardly wait to see you, Finn.
I dropped 2 stones of concern, one for my sister Betsy, who's had a medication change for Parkinson's and is having a little trouble dealing with that. The other one is for my sister Maddie. Unfortunately, I left my phone off yesterday. I turned the ringer off and just forgot to turn it back on all day. And when I finally realized it, I turned my phone on. I had 20 messages from her. She calls me constantly. Maddie has dementia, and she needs lots and lots of good wishes.
Jeremy and Bowie, I saw them in Idaho. And Bowie is particularly known because in Covenant Group 5 years ago, and you know who you are, he was born, and I went, whoa, and everybody celebrated, and it was just a wonderful thing to share with my church friends.
Hi, I'm Dean, and I have a joy to share. I am a trustee of Funds for the Church, which is a group that you don't see much of. We manage a small endowment the church has, which means that money that people have given in their wills to the church over centuries generates a small but important part of the revenue that we use to run all year long. And so I had the privilege recently of handling the bequest by the Bouteliers, Jen and Dick, who each had an estate, and they left us money. And there's a complicated legal process that we do at our end to make this happen, and the lawyers take care of the rest of it. But basically, they gave money to the church, which will now generate revenue in perpetuity for the church. And so I said, what a great idea. So I did that. So I have it written in my will that a certain proportion of my estate goes to First Parish, and that money will support us in perpetuity. And so I don't know why I'm crying about this, but, I encourage all of you who are planful, organized people to leave money for this church so that it will be supporting the church in perpetuity. And I think that's among the finest things we can do for our community. Thank you.
And for all those reckless, impulsive people, there's the collection plate. I want to bear the 2 messages. One, obviously, for Charlie Kirk, who got shot, which is, a disaster and a tragic situation, and just the prayer would take a minute that we just could collectively, if ever, decide we're not going to solve our disputes by killing each other. Let's take a minute for that, regardless of political stripe. And then I also have the sad honor of delivering the news that Dorothy Tivnan passed away. Yeah. And I found this out on Friday and was going to put it out, but we're trying to get a date, so I didn't want to put out the news without a memorial service date. But she passed away, I think, Thursday or Friday of this week, yeah. So I've been in touch with her daughter, and sorry to pass that on, but that's what Joys and Concerns are here for, so, yeah. So a couple of stones for that. And then one for all those joys and concerns that are left unsaid. we have the words for Draw the Circle in the order of service. They're also, I spent Fridays putting them in all the hymnals, so we have them in case somebody's new, so we probably won't see them in the order of service. But if you open up the hymnal to one of the opening pages, you'll see my hard work, and you can thank me for all that. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. Heaven stands alone, side by side. Draw the circle Our offertory words come from Mark Twain, the great American humorist and writer. And he had a young minister came to Mark Twain one time, and they said, "Mr. Twain, you're a great writer. I'm starting to be a pastor. Do you have any advice for me as a sermon writer?" And he said, "Funny, I generally don't give advice." He says, "But I do. I'll give it to you." He goes, "I think every sermon should have a beginning, and every sermon should have an end, and those two should be as close together as possible." So leave it to Mark Twain. Our half plate is for the Wheat Community Foundation, so please give generously for that cause, and here we are. Rita.
Responsive reading, Be Worthy, by Reverend Stephen Schick. To look for the future in the mirror of this moment. To count one's blessings instead of accomplishments. To accept without malice the judgment of others. To speak without anger when anger is justified.
Is to be worthy of the name patience.
To give unselfishly when all has been lost. To be honest when deceit is expedient.
Is to be worthy of the name.
To act when realism demands pessimism.
Is to be worthy of the name hope.
To move forward when the way is not clear.
is to be worthy of the name faith,
to abandon conformity when it compromises justice,
is to be worthy of the name courage,
to make your enemy's well-being your own concern,
is to be worthy of the name peacemaker,
to know that your humble, kind, and generous presence brings faith, courage, and hope,
is to be worthy of the name wisdom. Thank you, Rita. Choir, jump to it. Let's go. I like to look down on the choir.
Some things in life are bad. They can really make you mad.
Other things just make you swear and curse. When you're chewing on life's gristle, don't grumble, give a whistle. And this'll help things turn out for the best. And always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. If life seems jolly rotten, there's something you've forgotten, and that's to laugh and smile and dance and sing. When you're feeling in the dumps, don't be silly chumps. Just purse your lips and whistle, that's the thing. And always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. Life is quite absurd, and that's the final word. Always raise the curtain with a bow. Forget about your sin, give the audience a grin. Enjoy it, it's your last chance anyhow. Always look on the bright side of life. Just before you draw an eternal breath. Life is quite absurd, and that's the final word. Life's a laugh and that's a joke, it's true. You'll see it's all the show. You'll laugh as you go. Remember when the last laugh is on you.
Always look on the bright side of life. Always look on the bright side of life. It's good. To the church where you get a little Monty Python, that's pretty good. When I decided to dedicate a sermon on humor, when it was prompted by that, I felt like it was a treat, you know, like an indulgence. And I like to think I know why. I like to think I know what's funny. I was aware that I didn't know why something was funny, which is a sneaky excuse for the sermon, but like the Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart said about pornography, I might not know exactly how to define it, but I know it when I see it. So some of you like that one, huh? So some of you called my collection jokes corny, and I've never forgiven you. This is my chance to prove you haters wrong. In a sermon about humor or laughter, I felt the need to be funny without feeling like it was an effort at a comedy routine, right? I decided to look at humor from the perspective of a social scientist and then squeeze in some jokes to make it, to not lose the magic of the theme. Essentially, I wanted to keep consistent with my pattern of overanalyzing spiritual matters until I basically drive them into the ground and kill them. In my effort to overanalyze that, I sort of came up with the idea is what function does it have? Because it's a little bit odd, isn't it, what function humor has? It doesn't, give us more corn or anything. It's nearly like the equivalent of making things taste good, But so I asked, why does the simple question, if love is blind, why is lingerie so popular? Why is that so funny? Why does that bring such cheeky joy? But what makes something funny is a very complicated question, right? And the funny thing about humor, not ha-ha funny, but odd funny, is we don't really know what's funny about something we're chuckling about. But the minute we find out what's funny about it, it's not funny anymore, right? Like it's a little bit like trying to figure out how to frog works, right? You can figure out how to frog works, but it usually dies in the process. The experience of what is funny, well, it's true. I refused to dissect my frog when I was in high school, so you can be proud. Yeah, I hadn't quite known what was funny to put under the microscope, but it isn't funny anymore, and I think that's kind of cool. So Reverend Forzeg suggested in her Humor and Laughter, which I sort of stole a few things from. She says that analyzing humor is a little bit like that, and I was asked by a friend to give my friend Eric's back in town, and he asked me to give his cat a bath, which I know you would think was funny. We know lots of unexpected things can happen when you, in an effort to bathe a cat, never mind being a stranger trying to bathe a cat. So my notes here instruct me to pause for the comical images that you might have come to mind. You might be quietly imagining me chasing a cat around an apartment. You might imagine water spilling everywhere, or me getting scratched reaching under the couch for the cat. As it turned out, none of that happened at all. In fact, the cat liked it a lot more than I ever expected it would. Good news for me, but not very funny, until I add that most people, have no idea how hard it is to get those little hairs off your tongue. Kind of funny, right? At least I thought so, I don't know. If you follow that with a joke, it's in the twist of the expectation that we find humor and a certain amount of joy. And the scholars of comedy suggest that humor is connected to the experience we have when our brains, which are working hard to predict things, humor is based a lot on the fact that our brains are looking for predictions, right? We're looking to kind of simplify things for our mind. And humor comes from when established patterns get challenged. That is one way something is funny. And part of why humor can't be studied is that it has this surprise element to it, right? Meaning a twist of expectations on what's expected is part of the requirement for what's funny, and I think that's true. So comedy always approaches things a little bit peripherally, if you think about it. Meaning that in comedy's DNA is a little bit of chaos. In John Morrell's book, Taking Laughter Seriously, he claims that humor is based on novelty and incongruity, essentially suggesting that a big part of what's so funny is that elevating, spirit-lifting pleasure we get of having our expectations violated. But comedy's hardly physics, and I was struck by how discerning exactly what makes somebody funny is a little bit like when the physicists look at an atom, right? The analysis is always a little bit late, right? They can never identify where the atom is until it's passed, and that also they've discovered that the perspective of the person changes how an atom is viewed, which makes no sense at all. My father talks about the days my grandmother, his mother, died in her sleep. He says when she died, she turned 98 years old, and she was surrounded by her 3 kids. When people respond, as they frequently do, with a comforting statement, well, like, that's a nice way to go, he adds with a straight face, some of you have met my dad, before smiling, well, my sister's riding in the car didn't think so. Some of you thought that was funny. You almost can't help but chuckle at the surprise of the idea that she was driving. And however, like when people sort of get to that, my dad will say, even if that was tragic and an accident and terrible, there was at least something relevant and blessed about that day. They were able to save her unborn baby. All right, I thought that was funny too. Twisted a little, but funny. What something's funny is rooted in that twist in content as much as it is to pace, right? Pace is important too. And some of what's part of the comedy is dependent on your own experience of the pause in timing it takes to get a joke. So someone said to someone, he's so stupid he couldn't get water out of a boot if the directions were written on the sole of the boot. Which takes a minute. And it's also dependent upon how sensitive you are to calling somebody stupid, right? Like if that sensitivity rises up and is more offensive than the joke of realizing that it takes looking at the bottom of a boot to dump water out of it, humor is not only then about timing, it's inherently subjective and about a certain sensitivity too. So, we of course know that not every joke works on everyone at all times. Comedy and physics are also similar in the way that we know that the observer changes the joke, right? The fact that humor is rooted not only in words and in actions, but also in the internal experience of the observer, when you think about it. I hadn't quite known that directly or exactly known what that meant. But what's hard about humor is whether something is funny or sad or hurtful or complex is simply fluid and contextual and relational and personal. So even if we know what makes something funny involves an unexpected twist in perspective, right? There's something that kind of sneaks up on us. The recipe involves too many parts to be predictable always. Saturday Night Live. Did you ever watch Saturday Night Live? The skits, which include, when you think about it, top of their craft professionals with no other agenda than to spend an entire frantic week creating an hour-and-a-half show of what's funny, seem to only get the skits right about a third of the time, right? So predicting what's funny and hard is kind of like bathing a cat. It's challenging. So if we're inclined to want to see a character brought down to earth, things as familiar and humbling as watching someone try to steer a shopping cart with a broken wheel can be hilarious. However, that same visual can be just as sympathetic and not laughter-provoking if we think about the person pushing the cart as being like a haggard mother with 3 kids around, right? And she's got the wrong cart that won't steer well. What's funny is immediately not funny. So essentially, with humor, too many variables are there to predict exactly what's going to happen. So exactly what humor is hard. What it does is a little bit easier. Even if it doesn't take a scientist to tell us that we generally enjoy the people that we laugh with, it's a bonding experience to laugh with people over something. Laughter is a key tool in managing our social relationships. We use humor as a social lubricant. Laughter is a bridge between people and frequently employed as both a conscious and unconscious tool in getting through an uncomfortable situation where there could be hostility or aggression. Often laughter is added to sort of smooth things out. So people laugh also out of fear often as well. When they're lying, they'll laugh too. And when it turns out they're uncomfortable to deliver a thing, and laughter is kind of used in that way. The underlying evolutionary theory is that laughter, like a smile, is a profoundly disarming action to those who witness it. It takes away your sort of potency and potentially your aggression. And it sort of functions as a bridge to warmth and community and closeness and goodwill. Laughter, as someone said, is a cue that we're supposed to be friends, which I think is true. But laughter not only reduces social tension, laughter literally heals us. As one source described it, when we laugh, our whole system dances, right? Did you know that studies have shown that when you laugh, whether it's contrived or not, just whether you laugh, studies exhibited a measured decrease in blood pressure as much as 35%. Another study showed that those who laugh on average for more than 4 minutes a day extend their life by more than 7 years. Okay, I made those statistics up, but I bet you feel good about hearing them, even if you didn't like my cat joke. My sermon reads here that I should expect more than 65% of you loved that. If you did, you can thank me for, and this is true, strengthening your immune system and relaxing your muscles. So in fact, this sermon has probably improved your health for the rest of the day. Not enough necessarily to compete with the high saturated fat you're about to eat at coffee hour, but maybe church will be a wash. So, in researching this sermon, I've read reports that suggest that half a minute of full, hearty laughter is the same physical benefit as rowing. Half a minute is equal to 3 minutes of rowing, and I did not make that up, right? What I would like to find is a joke that lives somewhere in there about how much easier it is to laugh than to row, but I didn't find that. As Harry Beecher Stowe says so well, mirth is God's medicine for a long life, and everyone ought to bathe in it, right? Mirth is God's medicine for a long life, and everyone ought to bathe in it. He died at 43, but I still think that he's right. Harry Beecher Stowe did not die a young life, but it's worked for the joke. Laughter not only heals, and what is not funny, not only act as a social lubricant, humor might also be the most concise way to pass on information about culture and identity. I challenge you to more concisely express the nature of what it is to be a UU. More concisely, if you can explain what it is to be a UU, we'll talk about this in the new member class, then these 3 jokes. First joke. What do you get when you cross a Jehovah's Witness with a Unitarian Universalist?
Somebody who knocks on your door but doesn't know what to say.
Exactly. 2, second joke. The real holy trinity for Unitarian Universalists is reduce, reuse, recycle. And the third one is, did you hear about the outraged UU? Yes, they were out caught burning question marks on people's lawns. If you did not understand Unitarian Universalism, I don't believe there's a more efficient way to get it. So, and even if we don't know what functionally is, humor heals us. Humor acts as a social lubricant. Humor takes the sting also out of tragedy and the challenges to our fate, which are just everywhere, as we all know. There's a Yiddish proverb that says, what soap is to the body, laughter is to the soul. What soap is to the body, laughter is to the soul. And I think that's pretty good. We've all felt laughter's cleansing, renewing quality. And I think humor is to facing what we inherently have to face as human beings existentially, what the pleasure of tasting food is to eating, right? Think about that. We need to eat. The joy is the food tastes great and feels good to eat. We have to deal with tragedy. Laughter is the taste buds, the sort of what gets us through that difficult spot. And when you think about it that way, laughter and humor might be more important than we've ever thought. When life gets too intense, it's laughter that can help give us a new perspective, can help kind of clean the slate a little bit and give us even a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. There's a lot of connection between tragedy and comedy. Mark Twain smartly said that tragedy is comedy plus time. Tragedy is comedy plus time. 15 years ago or so, Chris Rock got in a heap of trouble, maybe a little more than that now, for suggesting that the new World Trade Center or Freedom Tower in New York City should literally be titled, "The Ain't Ever Going in Their Tower." And it should have as a corporate sponsor the department store Target. Now, I happen to think that's funny. It's funny because it names that hard-to-say fear that this new building would be something that terrorists would want to also take down. It's also funny because we have a certain superstition about these kind of things that we don't want to be there. You would never deliver that joke a year after 9/11, though, right? It takes a little bit of time. You wouldn't deliver that joke to people who you knew had lost loved ones in that, right? It's a lot about that. Humor, if we think about it, reveals instantly almost where our location is and soft spots culturally, right? We would make jokes that a right-wing church or gathering never would. I want you to feel your body's response to this, me standing in a church delivering the following joke. This is an experiment. This is me, but not me, right? Let's see. Here we go. Now, as a person of Irish heritage, I feel like I can tell this following joke. An Irishman walks past a bar. It happens. I can tell that joke. I'm Irish. The Irish aren't sort of a disparaged group anymore. You might not be able to tell that joke 75, 100 years ago, especially if you weren't Irish. Here's a joke I can't tell, though, right? Ready for a joke I can't tell? Why do all Jewish football players play defense? Because they're very good at getting the quarterback. Right. Humor gives us our social location. Now, I don't have the right to tell that Jewish joke, especially since I'm not Jewish, right? And it gets at something. Anti-Semitism is a much more serious thing in our culture now than anti-Irish stuff is, right? So we know where the boundaries are. I remember Bill Weld told the joke one time. He said, he was talking about people who came to this country with 2 bags under their arms, like immigrants, right? And he said, well, my family came to this country with 2 bags under their arms. Granted, they were filled with gold, but that's a different story. He can tell that joke. There's a subtle and power dynamic at work when you deal with humor. And if you watch TV, you can sort of see what different political views see as funny. Right? One safety net was that jokes should be about what people do, not what they are. So that's a great question to not find yourself faux pas-ing a joke. It should be about what people do, not what or who they are. That is why jokes can be really funny and inappropriate at the exact same time. When people who study racism, they say that you can't be a racist without having any structural power, right? That feels like that makes sense when it comes to humor as well. So I was driving down the road, back from cleaning my friend's cat, and on a big truck, growling big truck that you see, was a bumper sticker that said, "Black Rifles Matter." In witnessing these two things, I felt the sharp twist that I could sort of appreciate the humor of that, but I also couldn't appreciate the humor of that because I understand the damage that guns do, and I also think that it's obviously a slight against Black Lives Matter. So you can feel where humor just cuts in both different directions. So the question one is faced with regarding humor is does the cutting, insightful, emperor has no clothes quality of the joke worth the derogatory statement that it can have within it? And to that, there is no answer. There can be no finite answer to where the line where humor exists crosses over to be hurtful, because What allows any experience to be funny or so hurtful that it's not funny is the interior experience of the one who's listening to that joke. So for all its healing, incisive power, humor not only offers a balm to life's challenges, it can also serve as like a twist to the knife, right? Just ask Stephen Colbert or Trump. Humor also lives with an edge. And it's dangerous at times, not funny, because its potency is just there to be revealed. The distinction is another way to think about whether humor, are you using it to laugh with someone or are you using it to laugh at someone? Jokes designed to laugh at someone feel very close to ridicule, where humor is designed to laugh generally with someone is an earnest expression of the human condition, right? This might be why someone slipping on a banana peel can be so funny, but someone with cerebral palsy falling down is not, right? So there's a lot that's not funny about what might be funny, and there is where the ethics in humor reside. I would not have thought it funny in those terms. Generally, it's kinder when it focuses on particular behaviors and human circumstances than when it targets groups or particularly permanent challenges with people. Think about that, right? It's events rather than the nature of people. Again, that's why it's funny to watch someone on America's Funniest Home Videos proudly bounce off their trampoline and fall, but it's instantly not funny when you discover they just broke their back, right? Humor unveils our social existential position on things. Our ability, as the Brits say, to take the piss out of ourselves, as the phrase goes, pardon the crude phrasing. A laughter expert, John Morrow, phrases it, people who laugh, and particularly people who laugh at themselves, are trusted to be more humble in moments of their own success, less defeated in times of trouble, and more accepting of things the way they are than people who can't laugh at themselves. For these reasons, it's more underrated for its potency to be about liberation and oppression than we generally think about humor. Humor is a tool to remind us of our fragility, our weakness, our humanity, and it's frankly a tool to deal with the fact that built into life is part of a tragedy. So I walk away believing that humor is really only something that one can see out of the corner of their eye. And for that reason, I believe humor has an almost magical, indefinable quality that's equal to love and beauty in the panorama of things like that. And I hadn't quite expected to find that. Amen. Any responses to that? Any thoughts? Okay. There we go. We're going to sing our closing hymn, There's More Love Somewhere, which is not an encouragement to leave the room to look for that. It's 95 in our hymnal. More Love Somewhere.
There is more
If you are who you were, we have failed. If you are who you were, and if the person next to you is who he or she was, if none of us have changed since the day we came in here, we have failed. The purpose of this community, of any church, temple, zendo, mosque, is to help its people grow. We do this through encounters with the unknown, in ourselves, in one another, in the other, whoever that might be for us, however hard that might be, because these encounters have many gifts to offer. So may you go forth from here this morning, not who you were, but who you could be. So may we all.
Come join us for coffee hour next door.
You